For decades, the rules of the European Union have been written by the heavyweights. Countries like France, Germany, and Italy hold the population numbers, the economic leverage, and ultimately the steering wheel. But a quiet diplomatic meeting in Warsaw is shifting that center of gravity. It was the first foreign trip for Hungary's new leader, Péter Magyar, sitting down with the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk. On paper, these two are natural rivals. Magyar is a staunch anti-corruption conservative. Tusk is a center-left pan-Europeanist. When it comes to domestic issues, they disagree on almost everything. This isn't an attempt to align their domestic platforms. It is a strategic partnership aimed at solving a massive shared problem. For the last 10 years, the nations of Central Europe have been sidelined on the global stage, punching way below their actual weight class. Magyar and Tusk have realized that by shelving their domestic disputes, they can activate a coordinated voting bloc that has been offline for a decade. This alliance is a calculated move designed to exploit the specific mechanics of how European laws are actually made. EU laws require weighted majority voting, a target number of countries, and a percentage of the population. Giant states like France dominate the population metric, but grouped together, the Visegrád 4, Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, and Slovakia, mathematically match the giants. Because they represent 4 separate sovereign entities voting as a single bloc, they actually possess more mathematical voting power than France or Italy. If this structural advantage has always been there, why have these countries ignored it for an entire decade? The primary roadblock was the man previously running Hungary, Viktor Orbán. Over his tenure, Orbán's government became breathlessly corrupt and aggressively pro-Russian and openly anti-European. Match that with the nationalist governments that controlled Poland before Donald Tusk returned, and the Visegrád alliance fractured under constant infighting and incompatible foreign policies. Orbán's isolationism did more than just alienate his neighbors. It effectively disabled the V4's mechanical voting advantage. That brings us back to Péter Magyar, who recently managed to kick Orbán completely out of power. The fallout has been swift. Orbán's former ministers have fled the country to avoid jail, and the loyalists left behind are being systematically stripped of their remaining power through parliamentary votes. Add Donald Tusk taking control in Warsaw to remove the last layer of friction, and the two major players are suddenly locking back into alignment. The political roadblocks are gone, and the Visegrád voting machine is officially plugged back in. The most immediate consequence of this shift lands directly on the war in Ukraine. With Orbán out of the picture, the primary veto threat that had consistently stalled consensus on Russian sanctions and European military aid is gone. There is a lingering caveat in Slovakia. Their leader, Robert Fico, is a bit of a wild card, but he is far less disruptive to the bloc than the leaders of the past 10 years. On vital security issues, Central Europe is now positioned to act as a unified, coordinated shield, rather than a fractured vulnerability. Beyond wartime security, this changes the math on the day-to-day governance of Europe, especially when it comes down to major financial battles, like setting the EU budgets. A restored V4 alliance allows these Central European nations to sit across the table from established powers and negotiate directly, on equal footing. They aren't going to get their way on every single vote, but they finally have the collective leverage to stand up for their own regional priorities without having to bow to Paris or Berlin. The anti-corruption sweep in Hungary cleaned out a corrupt domestic government and, in the process, resurrected a dormant geopolitical heavyweight that alters the balance of power across the entire continent.